Good afternoon, children. Welcome to your biology classes. Today, as we start with our learning, it is important that I must introduce the syllabus of first term, a total of some 15 topics, and the colored portion, that is number 1, virus, and second, body fluids and circulation, we have already completed before the holidays. I'll also remind you the same were the lessons we had framed up as a syllabus for unit test 1, which was already done. So today we will move further and the teaching continues now with the new lesson, the living world. So please write down all these topics that will be covered in your first term. And before we begin, one more thing I must remind you that all of you should have arranged for your textbooks from the market, Veerbala Rastogi volume 1, right? Because though I am giving the notes from time to time and all of you are expected to copy them clearly into your registers that you have made, but we will keep referring back to the book for your learning. Let us begin with our new topic, the living world. The world is full of diverse things on the planet, right? And this is divided broadly into two categories. Living organisms, which are animate, that is they have the life, and non-living objects which are inanimate or without life. Now living things, we can define them as a complex unit of various physical chemical materials that are possible of some many characteristics in them. What characteristics? Shortly, like growth, metabolism, reproduction, respiration, etc. So our new topic would be characteristics of living things or living organisms. The most important characteristic is that all living organisms, they grow. That is growth in mass, then increase in number, and this is the basis of all living things, that each organism is capable of growth. Coming to the second category is reproduction. Another very important characteristic of the living objects, that organisms, they reproduce either sexually or by asexual means, right? Various unicellular organisms, for example, bacteria, amoeba, etc., they all reproduce by various asexual methods, right? And reproduction and growth, both sometimes are synonymous, right? That is both, we can say they help in increase in number of cells. Coming to the third characteristic, that is the metabolism. What does the term metabolism mean? It means the living reactions inside the organism. That is various type of physiological reactions, we can say. We know, children, that all living organisms are made up of chemicals. And the chemicals, like we call them biomolecules, they are constantly made in the body by various reactions that we call as metabolic reactions, right? So we can say that the sum total of all reactions that are occurring in the body is metabolism. You have studied the word anabolism and catabolism in previous classes, so I hope you revise the same. Then the definition of metabolism is the sum total of all chemical reactions occurring in our body is metabolism. The fourth characteristic of living organisms, that living beings have a cellular organization, right? That is, they are made up of simplified structures that are cells, the basis of fundamental and structural unit of life. Coming to fifth category of the characteristic, all living organisms have consciousness. Consciousness means that they are able to sense the surrounding or the environment, and then they are also able to respond to various stimuli that could be physical, chemical or biological, and this is called as consciousness. Living things only show this, non-living things do not. Coming next to respiration, that we know already that all living things, they respire, right? Whether by aerobic or anaerobic means. Seventh is irritability, that is a response to external stimuli. eighth is movement, and finally it is adaptation to the surroundings. So I hope this is clear, children, the characteristics of living organisms. The next in your syllabus it says is definition of biodiversity. Not much about it, but only the definition. So what is biodiversity? See, bio and diversity, there are two words. Bio means life and diversity means the variety. In short, the diversity in the living world or the variety in the living world is called biodiversity. That is, we can see that there are millions of species of living organisms around us, and they are different in size, color, morphology, habitats. Habitat means their behavior. Habitat means the home. Habit means the behavior, etc. Right? So, till date, we know that there are some identified living organisms numbering up to 1.7 to 1.8 millions. Out of this, some 1.2 million species come under animal category and 0.5 millions are under plant species. So you can see the difference. The animal number of species, they surpass over the plant species. So biodiversity, children, only the definition. Moving on to the next topic, need for classification. Now when we know that living things on the planet are so huge in number, then definitely there is a need to classify them. What is the basic necessity to? Number one, the classification makes the study of different organisms very convenient. That means easy. Classification facilitates identification of organisms. We can easily identify them. Third, classification shows relationship amongst various groups of organisms. That means similarities they will be showing into one category, right? And they will be showing differences from the other. Fourth, classification shows evolutionary trends in various groups. Evolutionary means how they have been gradually changing from one form to the other over millions of years. Fifth, classification helps in interpreting poorly developed structures of fossil organisms. Fossil means the dead remains of plants and animals. And finally, study of a few representatives of a group gives general characteristics of the group as a whole. That means in a group, even if you study one member, you might understand that yes, more or less the others have the same features. Alright, so this is all that I have done till just now. We talked about the living world, characteristics, biodiversity, and the need of classification. Now, let us come to three domains of life, right? Domain means it's a broader category of kingdom, right? So the concept of three domain, there is a name we call as WOS, and others, they gave them in 1969, right? So the three domains of life. Domain basically represents the evolutionary model of classification. Evolutionary means how did the form change from one to the other in a gradual sense. So if you see this diagram, let us see this. This is an unknown ancestor, and from a similar source came three broad wings or three domains. We call them as domain Archaea. Second is domain here, if you see, Eubacteria, and third is Eukaryota or Eukarya, right? So there are three domains. You can see more or less they started from one common origin. And this classification model of evolution is based on 2 points. What is it? Number one, that the difference of nucleotides, if you remember nucleotides in your previous chapter, children, I introduced you the assembly of phosphate bond, carbon sugar, and the nitrogenous base. So this is the difference of nucleotides in the ribosomal RNAs and also the lipid structure, that is the lipid structure of cell membrane. Now according to this, there are three domains of life. Number one, just now as I showed you, domain Archaea or Archaebacteria. 2, domain Bacteria or Eubacteria. And 3, domain Eukarya or Eukaryota. So just now I showed you that the origin of all three of them is a common ancestor, and this is an archaeal prokaryotic ancestor cell. Further, if we move, Archaea can be divided into three groups we call methanogens or methane producing. Methane, the combustible gas, and gen means producing. Halophiles, these are salt lovers, and hyperthermophiles, that means those which can tolerate extreme temperatures. Similarly, eukarya, they are divided into four kingdoms: kingdom Protista, Mycota, kingdom Plantae, and kingdom Animalia. So now we are going to start the details of every domain. First, domain Archaea or Archaebacteria. Very interestingly, children, when life originated, these were the most primitive forms, right? When life must have ever started on the planet, these were the most primitive or first forms of life. The cell membrane is made up of branched hydrocarbon chains. Hydrocarbon means made of hydrogen and carbon only. And this is attached to the glycerol, due to which, now presence of this chain attachment to glycerol makes them tolerate extremities of heat and acidity. That is why they were prevalent in the starting of life and that time. The cell membrane has no peptidoglands. Fourth, they are not influenced by antibiotics that destroy bacteria. They will not be affected. Fifth, rRNA. Small r means ribosomal and RNA means ribonucleic acid. See, RNA is not just found in the nucleus, but it's also found in the ribosomes. So this is unique and very different from the bacterial RNA. That means this RNA is different from the bacterial RNA, what we are trying to tell you. Then, finally, they live in extreme environment, and there are three types I told you: methanogens, halophiles, and hyperthermophiles. Let us come to domain bacteria, the second one here. Here, also called as eubacteria, cell membrane is composed of unbranched. See, this is the difference. Here it was branched, here it is unbranched fatty acid, right? Chains attached to glycerol. So here the chain was hydrocarbon and branched. Here the chain is fatty acid and unbranched, but the similarity is, yes, it is attached to glycerol. The cell wall is formed of peptidoglycans, which was not present here, right? That is why they are different. Bacteria are sensitive to antibiotics. Here they were not. All right. Fourth, naked DNA molecule lies in cell cytoplasm. Naked means this is not surrounded by a nuclear membrane. The bacterial RNA is unique and distinctly different from both the other categories. That is, this RNA of the ribosomal RNA is different from Archaea or Eukaryota. Then, bacterial ribosomes are 70S types. S is a symbol, it means Swedberg units for the measurement, right? Examples that come under eubacteria: Mycoplasma, cyanobacteria, which are also called as blue-green algae, we abbreviate as BGA in capitals. Then gram-positive and gram-negative. This we'll talk later, but let me tell you why we call them positive and negative. Because this group of bacteria, they stain as per a series of staining technique developed by Christian Gram, and therefore they are called positive, and these do not stain accordingly, so they are called as negative, right? So, I mean, these are, we can say, as purple and red. We'll talk about later in our next topics. So, coming next to distinguishing features of the third domain, domain eukarya or eukaryota. These are eukaryotic organization in cells. Eukaryotic means they are well-developed nucleus. The nuclear membrane is there. The chromatin is not scattered like prokaryotic. Cell membrane made up of trilaminar protein, lipid, protein layer, as in bacteria, right? Trilaminar means in 3 layers. Cell wall is absent in animals cells but present in plant cells. And peptidoglycans are not found. You'll have to learn these characteristics, children. Fourth, they are resistant to traditional antibiotics, and hereditary material formed is of nucleoprotein fibers composed of DNA and proteins. That is why we call them nucleoprotein fibers. that is DNA and histones. This is what you have studied in class 10th if you remember, right? The histone proteins during the formation of a nucleosome. rRNA is unique and ribosomes are ATS type. Alright. Then coming to eukarya, that is coming under this only, eukarya. This is divided into 4 kingdoms: kingdom Protista, kingdom Mycota, kingdom Plantae, and kingdom Animalia. Here. So let us see what all things come under here. Protista includes slime molds, euglenoids, algae, and protozoans. Whereas Mycota, the kingdom includes phycomycetes, zygomycetes, ascomycetes, basidiomycetes, and deuteromycetes. Kingdom Plantae includes bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. Whereas all animals, they come under kingdom Animalia. Then, now we will start with the category of each of these in detail. Just now, children, we described about the characteristics of archaea, bacteria, and eukarya. Now we are going to subheadings. Now we're starting with the characteristics of methanogens, halophiles, and hyperthermophiles. So let's talk about archaea first. This, as I told earlier only here, they are the most primitive type of organisms. They are the most primitive group of bacteria, evolved billions of years ago in hostile, that means unfriendly conditions. Since then, they have survived unchanged. That means by that time till now, till today, they haven't changed. Then, still they live in extreme environments like Dead Sea, sulfur springs, volcanic wells, Great Salt Lake, etc. They are of 3 types: methane producers or methanogens, salt lovers or halophiles, heat cold lovers or thermoacidophiles. Methanogens we also call as methane producers or methanogenic archaebacteria. They are obligate anaerobic autotrophs. The term obligate means strictly, right? That means they will be strictly anaerobic, right? They cannot live in oxygen. That means they can only live if oxygen is provided, they will die. So this is obligate anaerobic autotroph, means they will live without oxygen and they are strictly meant for this life, because if oxygen is provided, they will be dead. And autotrophs because they produce their own food. So these organisms, they produce methane from carbon dioxide and acetic acid from sewage in marshy conditions. So in such conditions, we know oxygen is not there. So look at the methane production. Carbon dioxide reacts with hydrogen, giving methane, right? And the acetic acid, this also breaks into methane and CO2. So this methane, what is the source coming from? Either is it carbon dioxide and hydrogen or acetic acid, and these are present in, let's say, sewage in marshy conditions. But the end product is same, that methane is produced. These are found in marshes, bogs, swamps, rumen of cattle, that is cows and buffaloes. They help in fermentation of cellulose and do not decompose the organic matter but utilize the end products of decomposition. Then coming to halophiles or the salt lovers or halophilic archaebacteria, they are aerobic or facultative anaerobic. Aerobic means they are able to live in oxygen, and facultative means partially. That means if oxygen is deficient, then they can live without oxygen also. Heterotrophs means they cannot prepare their own food. These live in salt lakes, marshes, salt solution or brine. Then this is soil this is salt rich soil with 2.5 to 5 molarity. They have high intracellular salt concentration. Their enzymes and ribosomes function efficiently only at higher salt concentration. That means they are meant to live at a very high level of salt concentration. And they have a special photoreceptor pigment called bacteriorhodopsin. The same helps them become purple to harness or trap the solar energy in strong sunlight. Let us go with the function of bacteriorhodopsin. This protects the halophiles from strong solar radiations, helps in synthesis of ATP. ATP means adenosine triphosphate. The ATP synthesized is used under conditions of oxygen stress. That means once they have formed the food, they can also live under situations where oxygen is not provided. Nutrition is chemoautotrophic. There are two examples, Halococcus and Halobacterium. And remember children, when you're writing the scientific names, you need to underline the same, right? Because we'll be following the binomial nomenclature. We'll be doing it in our later part of this lesson. Coming to the next category of thermoacidophiles or thermoacidophilic archaebacteria or heat cold lovers. That means they can survive even at very high temperatures or even at very low temperatures. So they are aerobic or facultative anaerobic. Aerobic means only in the presence of oxygen, right? But if oxygen is not there for some reason, that they can also survive anaerobic. So the meaning, especially children, please write. Obligate means strictly, that is completely, right? But facultative means partially. Facultative means partially, or that they can switch over to the other category of respiration when required. These are adapted to live in hot and acidic medium. This is hot and acidic medium up to 80 degrees or above, and also at a pH of around 2. This is very, very highly acidic pH. They are found in hot sulfur springs, example sulfolobus, in refuse piles of coal mines like thermoplasma, or in geothermal areas of Iceland, for example thermoproteus. They are chemoautotrophs. That means autotrophs means they make their own food. How? By using the chemical energy. So autotroph means same thing. They can prepare their own food but through the chemical energy. Then they are under two types. They work under different conditions, like under aerobic conditions, sulfur is oxidized to sulfuric acid, example sulfolobus, and under anaerobic conditions, sulfur is reduced to hydrogen sulfide gas. Okay, so you may not learn over these equations children, you may skip over, but what you have to understand is the meaning of each technical term, that is what is thermoacidophilic, or what is the function of bacteriorhodopsin, or what are halophiles, what are methanogens. By the meanings should be very, very clear. Moving further to another topic, what we call as mycoplasma. In other ways, we also call it as PPLO. The full form is Pleuropneumonia-like organisms. Mycoplasma or PPLO, Pleuropneumonia-like organisms. Before we start this, I hope you are understanding the things children. Mycoplasma came as a word here under eubacteria. That means we are talking of the same domains, right? And it came under eubacteria or domain bacteria. So we are talking under this mycoplasma, right? So this mycoplasma, your syllabus says only 3 characteristics, right? It is your syllabus telling you only 3 characteristics to study, right? I think I missed this. Let us come back to this before we start with mycoplasma. Let us start with economic importance of archaebacteria. They are used generally in generation of gobar gas, that is to be used as cooking gas. This is a commercial usage. They are heat resistant, thermophilic enzymes and restriction enzymes. They are used in biotechnology. Then halophiles are used in bioleaching of poor mines and also as biosensors. Alright, so 1 or 2 you can definitely learn. Mycoplasma, now let us come under eubacteria. They are basically intermediates between two worlds, between bacteria and viruses. Your syllabus, children, restricts to only 3 characteristics. I'll be giving you a little more so that you can shortlist as per your convenience. First will be the full form, Pleuropneumonia-like organisms. They were discovered by Nocard and Rox in the year 1898. Where do they occur? In soil, sewage water, humans, plants, animals, hot water springs, and other warm environments. Now they show marked pleuromorphism. That means several shapes of the cell are seen. Let me show you how they look like. Mycoplasma, before we move further. This is an electron microscopic view of Mycoplasma cell. This is the electron microscopic view. So here, as you can see, they do not have a cell wall. There is no cell wall, and that is the only reason why they can change the shapes, because cell wall, children, we know is rigid, and since it is absent, they are known to occur in many forms. Then genetic material is in the form of a nucleoid. If you can see, there's no proper nucleus here, but DNA is just kind of scattered, right? So genetic material is in the form of a nucleoid. They are gram negative. That means with the Christian gram staining, they do not stain in the step there. Then ribosomes are 70 S types scattered in cytoplasm. You can see here the ribosomes, they are all scattered. Look at them. They are all scattered. Then organized nucleus, ER, endoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria. Then the plastids, Golgi bodies, centrioles, flagella, they are all absent. They are usually non-motile, that means they cannot move, but some show gliding movements. Then reproduction is by budding and binary fission, right? Binary fission means the cell divides into two, and budding, a small bud is given off, which starts behaving as a separate individual. And finally, they cause serious diseases in humans, plants, and animals. Which diseases? Let us see. Some diseases in humans like atypical pneumonia and mycoplasmal urethritis. And in plants, there are a number of diseases. For example, little leaf in brinjal, then witch's broom in legumes, bunchy top of papaya, etc. So as I told you, children, starting from here, mycoplasma, you might maximum be asked any 3 characteristics. If you remember this diagram, any 3 you would easily define or explain, right? I have given you some total of, I think, 7, 8, more than that, but you can shortlist as per what you can easily learn. Then, coming next to some few definitions. Number 1, taxonomy. See, the word taxa means category. So what is taxonomy? It's the process of classification of living organisms into different categories or taxa, right? Another word, what we call as systematics. It is the branch of biology that deals with the diversity or variety of organisms and their comparative and evolutionary relationships. Evolutionary means how they have evolved. This is based on comparative anatomy, comparative biochemistry, comparative physiology, and comparative ecology, right? So you'll have to learn the definitions. No details required, but definitions are to be learnt. Systematics, we classify under 2 headings. Sometimes we call as old systematics or classical systematics, and then new systematics. So this is old one is from the earliest times to the time of Linnaeus, that is Carolus Linnaeus. I'm sure you've heard of this name. But this is post-Linnaean period, that is after Linnaeus period till date. This is the new systematics. Another term called as phylogeny is the evolutionary history of a particular species that we can call as phylogeny. So I hope, children, this is clear. Once again, let us come back to all the things that we have learnt in our class today. We started with the living world, characteristics, definition of biodiversity, need of classification, 3 domains of life, what are their names, who proposed, then characteristics of each domain, starting from archaea to domain bacteria, various examples, how they came. Then we talked about domain eukaryota. After that, we talked about the classification of archaea or archaebacteria into methanogens, halophiles, importance of pigment, bacteriorhodopsin, and thermoacidophiles. Further, we continued with economic importance of archaebacteria, a new word, mycoplasma or PPLO, with only 3 characteristics. I have written syllabus is only 3 distinctive features only, right? And then we talked about some new terms, definitions of taxonomy, systematics, and phylogeny. Today we will stop here, and tomorrow we'll continue with the new terms further in the chapter, scientific naming, etc. Now children, one request before I wind up. Please ensure, see, I'll be more or less talking of some 6 pages in a day on an average. So some 1, 2, 3, here this is 4th, 5 and 6. Please write down today itself, because tomorrow I'll post another pages and that will make your work a little more complicated. So it's easy that you study in portions, refer textbook, read that textbook also. If any doubt, please post your queries. I'll definitely solve to best of my capacity. At the same time, I'll remind you, please arrange for your lab manuals and the practical textbook, that is Nutan, right? Nagin Publications. And tomorrow onwards, I'll start posting twice a week. We will do our practical, student. So I'll be posting some assignments that you will need to copy and show me the work. All right. So just now I'll be signing off. Thank you, children.